Today at Manchester Theatres, I am here with Felipe Pacheco, who is touring with Frantic Assembly's Metamorphosis. It is coming to the Lowry from the 14th of November. And for anybody who has seen a Frantic Assembly production before, I know I'm talking to the converted because they are unbelievable. If you haven't been, you need to come along because I promise they will blow your mind. They get such a range of performers. So for instance, Felipe has been on screen in shows such as Brassic, Patterns, and The Responder. On stage, we're talking Othello, Henry V, Peter Pan, music videos with the likes of Chemical Brothers, Emily Sandé, and of course, lots of other things, particularly with Frantic Assembly. So this is why we're thrilled to have you with us today to chat all things Metamorphosis. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. It's exciting. Thank you. And thank you for such a comprehensive list of my CV. That's brilliant.
Well, I had to squash it all in. You've done so much. So Metamorphosis, it's your adaptation of it, isn't it? So it's been written by Lemn Sissay. And what can you tell us about Frantic Assembly's version of Metamorphosis?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and people that come and see it sort of, it feels like they fall into two brackets, sort of people that really know the story and or maybe come with an expectation of what it is going to be, right? And then there are people that obviously don't really know much, but have a sort of affinity to Frantic and the work that we do, and just come because they love the company and they're in for they want to explore the new stuff that we're making. So, but our version is very different to the original. That's why I kind of start off by saying that. So the original starts off, it's like one of the most famous lines in literature. It kind of starts off with Gregor Samsa, the main character, the protagonist. He wakes up in his bed one morning, but troubled by bad dreams, something like this. And he finds himself transformed into a cockroach, vermin, a bug, depending on which translation you're reading. We don't start there. And so it gets kind of like people have different reactions to that. Some people love it because you see a bit of a prequel towards how he gets there. And that's our sort of idea behind that. We want to see the journey that takes Gregor up to that point of metamorphosis. But some people kind of, I think, sort of crave that beginning because it's so famous. But that's our sort of take on it. We wanted to show that initial sort of progression to the point where he can't take it anymore. His life is full of pressures, financial, family pressures, and he kind of just falls down this precipice, this chasm that's left by having to wake up so early every morning, go to work, do the daily grind, and he's the breadwinner of the house, and then that just makes him he can't take it anymore. Unfortunately, it's pretty sad. But and then at the end of Act 1, we finally see that very explicit metamorphosis, and then Act 2 is maybe what more people come to expect.
So I was going to ask you about that. You've kind of already answered for me, so thank you. I was just going to say, so like, what do we get with Gregor before the metamorphosis? Because normally, like you say, you don't necessarily see that, but you're really delving into the person, so that when we see that change, it becomes interesting as to, has he changed massively? Is it the people around him who changed towards him? So that's what brings it on. So what is it like? How does that feed into how he is after the metamorphosis?
Great question. We spoke a lot about this when we were devising, when we were making it, and also during the research and development sessions previously. So the idea is that he doesn't so much go through a massive change, or rather he does, but as you've just pointed out, it's through the lens of other people's perspective upon him. So that was Scott Graham, our artistic director. That was his kind of vision for the metamorphosis that Gregor goes through. But it's also worth pointing out that we're exploring metamorphoses that the rest of the family go through too. So Greta, in particular, Gregor's sister, has this change that she's going through, that she's turning into a woman. She's becoming a woman. She's kind of infantilized by the family, sort of systematically kind of just kept as this young girl, little sister that doesn't have potentially that much going for her. That her aspirations might not be what you'd expect of a girl growing up today, and we're setting it sort of back in the day. So context is really important when it comes to that. And so we also were really keen to explore her metamorphosis as well as many others in the show. And so she is someone very interesting to see what she thinks of Gregor and how her perspective shifts as well as she's going through her own metamorphosis. So we kind of open up this web, if you kind of pardon the symmetry, the imagery. We go through this web of metamorphoses and different perspectives, and that, you're absolutely right. That is how we end up seeing Gregor. We're viewing him through this lens of everyone else. How does their image, their perspective of him change when he stops being the breadwinner and actually just becomes a burden to the family and therefore vermin?
It's so interesting, isn't it? And I suppose, like you said, there was so many discussions within rehearsal of, because everybody comes to something with their own story and things that have happened to them. So you've had that in rehearsal, but I'm imagining that you could potentially come and watch this with a group of friends, and everybody watching it again could have a different perception of what they're seeing based on their own views and their own lens, couldn't they?
Absolutely. And I think it's a testament to the writing, the original, and also Lemn's beautiful adaptation. So what Lemn is able to do is capture the essence of what makes the original novella, Kafka, so intriguing, so famous, and it's lasted the test of time. It's here, we're doing it, and Lemn's able to capture all of that, plus put in these just unbelievable moments of imagery. Just the whole script just drips with this figurative language that is stunning. But what it also does is that it kind of gets the story and sort of drags it to a more contemporary setting. I've said that we're set in the past, but it's still more contemporary. It's still what we would maybe we find easier to associate with as an audience. So he's able to do that as well through his writing, and so that's really important. And that's what you're saying. That's what enables people to have this reaction to it today. But also, what's really good about it is that the story, as all good writing is, has so much resonance to what's going on today, right? So one of the reasons why Scott was so keen to pick Metamorphosis to have a go at is because we're going through a really tough time, especially in this country, all around the world. And I say especially just because we know the things that are going on here, right? So people stuck in debt cycles, maybe going to payday loans, that sort of situation, waking up at 4 a.m., having to work from 5 till 8, maybe second jobs, just on this constant loop, just to make ends meet, the cost of living crisis affecting us all. And so it has a huge resonance to what's happening today. And as you said, that's why a group of friends would come and each one would take away their experience, because unfortunately we all know someone or maybe are going through part of that story ourselves, which I guess is very sad. But if we're able to kind of put that on stage in a way that is enjoyable and feels important to tell that story, then hey, we're doing something good, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm trying to think, because I've seen Frantic Assembly before, and I'm trying to think, where on earth do your rehearsals start? Like, where does your rehearsal point start? Because I know obviously you have a script, and we know that they're always amazing scripts and your own adaptations of them, but with what you do physically, which I'm going to come to more in a moment, but like how do you start like one of your productions?
We have a massive learn and train department in Frantic is huge. Like, it takes up a lot of our sort of day to day. And I'm lucky enough also to be a practitioner for the company. So I go around and I teach the Frantic method at home and abroad also. And that's something, that question that what you just asked is something that we get asked all the time, because it's like the holy grail. Like, where do you start? You know, and quite often the physical is a great place to start, movement, because when you're starting with something, even though it's a very famous novel, it's got a load of excellent sources and things to pull out from, stimuli to devise from. Even though you have that in Metamorphosis, it's still kind of daunting, isn't it, to just create a new adaptation out of nowhere. So we go through these research and development phases. We had 3 for this show. The first one was exploring all the sort of different physical elements that we thought might help us tell the story. So big group lifting sequences, that sort of stuff. And then the second one was more to do with looking at the original text, trying to draw out the themes that we find are most important, or the bits actually that we can tell best with our skill set as a company too. So then it was about getting Lemn in the room, and what a privilege that was to just see him work and just creating these, synthesizing these words, you know, out of the source material is just amazing. And then also just sort of tasks that Scott thinks, has a hunch that will help us tell the story. So it all starts very simply. So you're looking at something and saying, how are we going to adapt this? Well, let's break it down. What are the building blocks? That's something we speak about a lot. What are the building blocks to enable us to get to this place where you're sitting at the Lowry in Manchester watching the end product? Yeah, exactly. And so we start with very simple tasks. Here's a chair. How many different ways can you sort of reach around behind it, kind of looking sort of bug-like, right? Reach around behind it so I can only see your arms. Go. And then we run that exercise for 5 minutes and we see what lands, what doesn't. We might do it again with notes. And then it's kind of like, do we just repeat that process, rinse and repeat it until it kind of, we take away all the bits that don't serve the story and we end up with what you kind of see on stage. And it gets changed very often too, you know. So Scott always comes up to every venue on tour with us. We have David, our associate director, also that comes on tour, and they know the show. We change little things, and it's a completely different show now to what it was when we started in Plymouth. So yeah.
No way. It's fascinating. It's so fascinating. And so for people who might not know, and like you said, there's kind of 2 camps. There's those that come for Frantic, and then there's those that are going to come for the story. So for people who might not know who Frantic Assembly are, I mean, to me, it's about using movement as a way to connect, and to basically defy physical possibilities when you're watching it. So for someone who doesn't know, can you tell them who Frantic are?
Yeah, absolutely. So Frantic are a theatre company. Been going around for maybe 30 years now, long time. Don't tell that to Scott. Long time. And what Frantic are interested in doing is taking stories that have a contemporary resonance, right? Stuff that really resonates with the audience today. And as you say, put on this sort of use movement to best tell the story. That's how we frame it, because we're not also solely interested in that. And this show is actually an excellent example of it. The lighting is absolutely stunning, and it does such an important job for us in telling the story, as does the set. The set is amazing. So Simi and John, respectively, who made the lighting designer and the set designer, they've given us sort of a 6th and 7th cast member. Wow. That's what it feels like, to really, really help with telling the story. So we have lighting, we have set, music, really important to us. Stefan, who composed the brand new composition for the show as well, really, really helps and drive the sort of emotion and the tension throughout the story. And the text, Lemn, just enough said. And then we have then also the movement. And what we're interested in doing as a theatre company is employing all those different things at sort of the right level each time in order to best tell the story at that particular moment. Yeah. If that means that it's complete silence and a blackout doing the work for us, and then suddenly a spotlight appearing downstage left, I'm just sort of picking stuff at random, then that is the best way to tell the story. That is the most effective way. We'll do that. If it concerns blasting the audience with this really kind of oppressive sound and music to really like feel what the characters are going through, we'll 100% do that. And lots of times, as you might guess, it's all of those things in conjunction at different times helping us to do that. But as you rightly pointed out, we're most famous for our movement and our physical theatre, just because I think it was so different when Frantic first started, and it's what still draws the people to the company. And I would say, from my personal experience, what the movement helps us most to do as a company is be able to arrive at these moments that are otherworldly. Yeah. Because for all intents and purposes, the acting is naturalistic mostly. The story has quite a sort of a through line. The narrative is what we're used to. But what the movement does is it takes us to these dream worlds inside the characters' heads, and it gives us this third dimension, almost quite filmic.
Yes,
we're able to do close-ups, zoom outs, pans, fades, all via movement. So that is what is particularly special about Frantic too.
Yeah, honestly, it's just, I think, like I say, I've seen a few before. The last one I saw was Othello, and it's just incredible. And you mentioned the lighting there. I was going to ask you about that, because I've seen a few of the production shots, and what struck me with them was shadow. The shadow involved in all of them. So how is the shadow playing into the storytelling?
Lots. Lots. The shadow. So there's two cool things about the shadows. The first cool thing is that sometimes it's incidental, and you kind of get these big sort of silhouettes on the back that look like a painting, that look like this sort of abstract, lovely Monet painting, which is kind of creepy and grotesque at the same time. And what's really cool is Ian, who designed, who's the projectionist on this. He did all the what do you call it? The graphic sort of designs for the projection. He used shadow a lot in his work, and so there are bits. I don't want to give too much away, but there are bits where the shadow is how we project. It's so hard to say without giving
without saying.
The shadow. What the shadow does is it gives us a glimpse to the sort of bug and the cockroach and the vermin of what Gregor turns out to be, and you kind of can imagine how that might work. So yeah, one super important to this production for sure.
Yeah, it looks impressive on the pictures. And lastly, I just wanted to ask you something else I've seen. So this is going to be my untechnically sort of physical sense saying this. All I can say is there's a big pole thing hanging down from the ceiling with like a circle on it, and you're flying like everywhere. I mean, what on earth is that? I mean, obviously it's the Metamorphosis, but like, how do you even train for things like that?
We went through like a bit of a boot camp when we started training, so quite hard physical work at the beginning of every day, and so that's really helped. And I had a moment speaking with Scott before we started, kind of met up with him maybe a month before, and I was like, okay, Scott, what do I need to do here? And he said, you need to rock climb. I was thinking to myself, I need to what? So and I had another job before, just a week, and then I was going on holiday, and I thought I can't rock climb. So what I did was I went to the gym and I started doing exercises that rock climbers do at the gym.
Yes.
So I started just working on that, and you kind of just build up a strength to it and conditioning to be able to do it. So listen, I'm going to pat myself on the back and say that it is quite hard. It's quite tricky, but we work really hard as a cast and as a creative team to get to that point as well. And also there's this thing, that's also to do with show fitness. So in Plymouth, I was finding it really quite tricky. And then suddenly when you start just going through the motions and your body gets used to it, it's an amazing thing, the body. You just kind of start to get used to it and it becomes a bit easier. But yeah, I mean, our hope is that it kind of draws that reaction from the audience. So it's like, oh my God, this guy is actually a bug. So yes.
It's incredible, especially when I'm carrying my shopping from, you know, the supermarket and just up one flight of stairs, and I'm like, oh, and then I see you guys like, it's amazing.
Oh man,
thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. I honestly cannot wait for this production to come. As we said, the Lowry next week from the 14th of November. Come along, it will blow your mind. It'll be like nothing you have seen before. Thank you so much, and all the best with the tour.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thanks.